Every day, a major social media platform updates its policy to ban content that incites violence or targets marginalized groups. But the question remains, when does protected free speech cross the line and become actionable hate speech? This is the core ethical conflict of our digital age.
Welcome back to Fluent Talk, everyone. I'm Leo, and that's Ava. We are diving into modern society, ethics, and the law. Ava, while I agree the line is blurry, legally free speech is a cornerstone of democracy. We must maintain a very high threshold against censorship. Otherwise, where does the control stop?
Censorship is a charged word, Leo. We are talking about social responsibility. Hate speech is not just an unpleasant opinion, it's a form of digital harassment that actively harms individuals, drives radicalization, and undermines civic discourse. Online platforms have a moral duty to protect their users, just as physical spaces do.
But legally defining harm in a way that doesn't violate the principle of free speech is almost impossible. The classic legal test, speech that incites imminent lawless action, is a very narrow threshold if we allow platforms to be the sole arbiter of what constitutes hate speech. We grant private companies immense power of thought control, creating a dangerous precedent for censorship. The danger is that emotional arguments about social responsibility override the fundamental legal protection. We must protect the speech we hate. Otherwise, we risk silencing legitimate dissent against power structures. The solution is more speech, more counter-speech, not less.
More speech is too late when hate speech has already fueled violence. The platforms profit from the engagement that outrage generates. This isn't about the government's censorship. It's about corporations accepting their social responsibility for the ecosystem they profit from. Their algorithms must be audited for algorithmic transparency. We've just used powerful terms like free speech, hate speech, and censorship. If you want to discuss online ethics, stay with us until the very end. We will define social responsibility and algorithmic transparency in the vocabulary summary.
The economic and social cost of controlling platforms is immense. Speaking of costs, next, we revisit an old topic with new urgency. Universal Basic Income, UBI. Is it an essential human right in the age of automation?
The economic and social cost of controlling platforms is immense. Speaking of costs, next we revisit an old topic with new urgency. Universal Basic Income, UBI. Is it an essential human right in the age of automation?
It is an ethical necessity, Leo. With the rapid rise of automation, millions of traditional jobs are going to disappear. Universal basic income is not just welfare, it's a preventative measure to mitigate massive economic inequality and prevent the collapse of the consumer base when the labor force shrinks.
UBI is fiscally unsustainable unless you introduce punitive taxes. We are talking about giving an unconditional stipend to every single citizen. Furthermore, there is a legitimate fear that it devalues the concept of work and reduces human capital, incentivizing people to drop out of the labor force completely.
That argument relies on the deeply cynical idea that people are inherently lazy. Studies from UBI pilot programs show that recipients primarily use the money for education, starting small businesses, and improving their health. It's an investment in human capital, giving people the stability they need to pursue higher value work, not a reward for idleness. Let me ask you directly, Leo. In a fully automated society where machines produce most of the goods and wealth is concentrated at the top, does that society have a moral right to let people starve because they were replaced by an algorithm?
That is the core ethical challenge, Ava. And the answer is no, of course not. But UBI is a blunt instrument. We should invest in targeted retraining for the labor force to transition from old jobs to new high-demand roles. UBI risks removing the incentive to acquire the new skills that increase human capital, creating a cycle of dependency.
But even with retraining, automation is outpacing us. UBI acts as the essential floor, guaranteeing food security and stability, giving citizens the bargaining power to reject precarious, low-paying jobs that lead to burnout. It's the ultimate solution to address the structural economic inequality of the 21st century. We've just discussed universal basic income, automation, and economic inequality. If you want to talk about the future of your paycheck, stay with us until the very end. We will define labor force and human capital in the vocabulary summary.
Whether we pay people directly or not, the automated future relies on one thing: data. Next, we discuss the unseen, pervasive force shaping our lives: surveillance capitalism. Whether we pay people directly or not, the automated future relies on one thing: data. Next, we discuss the unseen, pervasive force shaping our lives: surveillance capitalism.
Surveillance capitalism is an inherently manipulative system. It's the idea that tech companies profit by harvesting our personal data, tracking our every click, our digital footprint, to predict and influence our future behavior. We are trading away our fundamental right to data privacy for the convenience of a free social media account.
But let's be realistic, Ava. That's the cost of living in the digital world. The vast majority of people willingly accept the trade-off. They get free access to information, connection, and sophisticated personalized services in exchange for their digital footprint. The solution isn't prohibiting the system, but demanding algorithmic transparency so people know how their data is being used.
The consent is a myth. You need to click accept all just to read a news article. We are overwhelmed by terms and conditions we never read. Exasperated laugh. My phone knows I need cat food before I know I need cat food. That level of data mining and tracking is intrusive and threatens democratic processes by creating echo chambers.
That data mining, or tracking, is also used for security, fraud detection, and improving essential services like mapping and medical diagnostics. The key is strict regulation, like the GDPR in Europe, which emphasizes data privacy and gives consumers the right to access and delete their digital footprint.
Regulation is a weak defense when the power is so centralized. The core ethical issue is the power imbalance. Companies know everything about us, but we know nothing about the proprietary algorithms that are influencing our emotions and choices. We must demand true algorithmic transparency to restore balance and protect data privacy. We've just discussed surveillance capitalism, data privacy, and digital footprint. If you're tired of targeted ads, stay with us until the very end. We will define algorithmic transparency and data mining in the vocabulary summary.
Whether we pay people directly or not, the automated future relies on one thing: data. Next, we discuss the ultimate question of individual autonomy: the right to die. Whether the choice is forced by a corporation or made by an individual, freedom remains the core debate. Next, we tackle the ultimate question of individual autonomy: the right to die.
This is perhaps the most profound ethical debate we face. I firmly believe the right to choose the manner and time of one's death is the ultimate expression of personal autonomy. When a person faces intractable suffering with no hope of recovery, legalizing euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide allows them to maintain dignity and control over their quality of life.
The core conflict lies in medical ethics. The job of a doctor is to preserve life, not to end it. Legalization opens a catastrophic door to potential abuse, particularly for vulnerable groups who might feel pressured to choose death due to factors like the high cost of living or lack of access to proper palliative care.
But this isn't about uncontrolled death. Legal models in jurisdictions where this is permitted require rigorous safeguards, multiple physician approvals, psychiatric evaluations, and confirmed terminal diagnoses. This is about providing an option for autonomy when all other options, including advanced palliative care, have failed.
We must respect the patient's deeply held, rational desire for what is often termed aid in dying.
To deny this is to deny their fundamental autonomy over their own body, forcing them to suffer unnecessarily just to comply with a set of rigid medical ethics. And that rigidity exists for a reason. The official position of many global medical associations views euthanasia as a profound violation of the Hippocratic Oath. We need massive investment in high-quality palliative care worldwide so that patients do not feel their only option is to end their lives because their pain is unmanaged or their living conditions are poor.
Both things must happen. We must improve palliative care, and we must respect autonomy. The legalization of the right to die is not a replacement for better care. It is the ultimate affirmation of an individual's right to control their own quality of life when facing the final stages of terminal illness. We've just discussed euthanasia, autonomy, and medical ethics. This is a deep topic, so stay with us until the very end. We will define quality of life and palliative care in the vocabulary summary.
Autonomy is essential, but it must be protected by the state. Next, we tackle the institutions that are supposed to enforce our safety and our rights. Reforming policing. Is the system fundamentally broken? Autonomy is essential, but it must be protected by the state. Next, we tackle the institutions that are supposed to enforce our safety and our rights. Reforming policing. Is the system fundamentally broken?
The core issue is systemic bias. The system was often designed to enforce social hierarchies, not to protect all citizens equally. Police reform that only focuses on body cameras and extra training is superficial. We need radical restructuring, demilitarization, and reallocating funds to social workers and mental health experts who are better equipped to handle nonviolent calls.
The need for a force capable of responding to violent crime is non-negotiable for public safety. The police are mandated to enforce the law and protect the due process of all citizens. The problem isn't the function, it's the lack of accountability and the failure to address poor training and the high-stress environments. Abolishing the system without a clear replacement infrastructure is irresponsible.
But when officers are repeatedly exonerated despite clear violations of human rights, that proves the systemic bias is immune to training. The mechanisms for accountability, internal affairs, police unions, are designed to protect the police, not the public. True police reform requires stripping away that immunity and ensuring that every officer is held to the same standard of due process as any citizen.
It is exhausting trying to get true accountability. But the path forward must be through legal channels. Federal oversight, mandatory data collection on use of force, and massive investment in better conflict de-escalation training to reduce the need for force in the first place. This is where police reform must focus its resources.
We must look at the roots. Police are asked to manage poverty, addiction, and mental illness, all social failures. Police reform is really about addressing systemic bias across the community, holding the state to its social responsibility to protect human rights and guarantee true due process for everyone. We've just discussed systemic bias, police reform, and accountability. If you care about justice in the law, stay with us until the very end. We will define due process and human rights in the vocabulary summary.
From free speech to due process, the challenge of modern society is finding the balance between individual freedom and collective safety. Now, let's move on to our final segment.
From free speech to due process, the challenge of modern society is finding the balance between individual freedom and collective safety. Now, let's move on to our final segment.
Exactly. It's time for your essential vocabulary takeaway. We've chosen 7 core terms that define the legal and ethical landscape of our world. Listen closely and repeat them out loud. First, free speech. This is the fundamental right to express one's opinions without censorship or restraint, often protected by law. Example, the debate centered on the limits of free speech online.
Next, Universal Basic Income, or UBI. This is a program for providing all citizens of a country or area with a regular, unconditional sum of money. Example, UBI is proposed as a solution to widespread automation.
Third, systemic bias. This refers to unfair policies or practices embedded within the operation of a system or organization. Example, police reform must address systemic bias, not just individual actions.
Autonomy. This is the right or condition of self-governance, the ability to make one's own choices. Example, the right to die is seen by many as the ultimate expression of autonomy.
Euthanasia. This is the painless killing of a patient suffering from an incurable and painful disease or in an irreversible coma. Example, the legalization of euthanasia requires strict medical ethics.
Sixth, systemic bias. This refers to unfair policies or practices embedded within the operation of a system or organization. Example, police reform must address systemic bias, not just individual actions.
And finally, due process. This is the requirement that the state must respect all legal rights that are owed to a person, especially in judicial proceedings. Example, accountability ensures that police actions adhere to due process.
What an important and challenging conversation today, covering everything from the internet to the ultimate question of life and death. Thank you for learning these complex terms with us.
Our final question for you, do you believe universal basic income is fiscally viable or just a pipe dream? Share your strongest economic arguments in the comments below.
Remember to hit that subscribe button. We post a brand new episode with fresh debates and more essential vocabulary every single day at 6 a.m. on the English Easy channel.
We'll see you next time. Bye for now.